Hey everyone, Charlie Morgan here and welcome to Protean Self-Evolution. Today's training video will be focused on you, and today we're going to talk all about yourself and really what it means to have an identity. In today's video we're going to be going through basically the nature of the self and the identity, who you are, your character, and why you are who you are. One of the most common existential questions people ask themselves in the 21st century, at least in Western culture, is who am I? And we have this deep drive to understand who we are. And today we're going to basically explore that. Now, it's important to understand that you are the nucleus of your reality. So everything that you experience and everything that manifests in your life is pretty much a direct result of who you are as a person. And I'm sure you've observed that, well, lots of different people have different realities. And I can tell you this is true because I've observed hundreds and hundreds of people go through our training programs at this point. And the results, well, they couldn't be more different. Some people get into the program and they start making multi-six figures from nothing within a month or two. And others, it takes them months to even start sending their first email to even get a reply. And that's just one example, small localized example in the business context. But what I can tell you is that if you can understand yourself, then you can understand how to get what you want. And that will all become very clear as we progress through this video. So the guy in the background is Proteus, and he's the Greek god of the sea. I think it might be the Greek god or the Roman god, one of the two. And Proteus was famous for his ability to shift his shape and to be malleable and to assume any form that he needed to assume. Now there's a famous quote that you've probably heard from Bruce Lee that says, "Be like water." You know, when water is in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. Well, that's the premise of this video. We're going to teach you how to understand who you are, and then basically, we're going to lay a foundation as like a real solid understanding of the sense of self you have to allow you to basically become who you need to become to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And everyone's got this wrong. Okay, this is a very, very idiosyncratic video. And if you ask anybody else whether or not they agree with what I'm laying out in this video, any normal common person, they'll most likely reject it. And so today, I'm going to basically peel this back and reveal to you the understanding of self that I've developed. It's taken me, I'd say, 7 to 8 years of intensive psychological, psychoanalytical, and universal, really, like research to figure this thing out. It's by far the biggest, most important driving force to my success, this understanding, and I'm really excited to be able to share this with you. You know, people consider me, at this point, I'm fortunate enough to be considered an expert on things like organic attraction, sales, certain business topics. But really underlying all of that is my expertise on psychology and the self and how that stuff works. And the reason I've been able to go from basically nothing to a multi-seven-figure entrepreneur in the space of a few years, or really a year with this business, is by understanding this. So pay attention, let's hop in. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to start by talking about the savage thing responsible for all your suffering. And then we're going to actually answer the big question, which is, who are you? Then we're going to talk about the disease of self-solidification. We'll then cover the conflict of growth, and we'll then cover the cure, Protean self-evolution. Now this video will be split into two parts. Today's video, the one that you're watching right now, is centered around your understanding. And the second video that you'll be watching next is centered more around actually taking action on this knowledge. It's impossible to act on yourself if you don't understand yourself, and it's impossible to change yourself if you don't understand the nature of identity. So if you don't watch this video and you just skip to the next one, or you speed this up, or you just try and go through it with other tabs and listen to it in the background, well, you're going to miss things and you're going to miss nuances and you're really going to struggle to make progress. So make sure you pay close attention. I promise once you finish this video, your mind will literally be blown. When I discovered this stuff, when I learned this when I was younger and when I really realized this, It was like my consciousness was just raised and I was just able to take this lens and perspective on myself that nobody else could. And I promise this will be the big needle mover for you. So the savage thing responsible for all your suffering, what is it? So who is to blame for all your suffering in life? You probably aren't having the best time right now, or you might be okay, but there's probably some sort of pain in your life. You know, people generally don't buy programs to get more clients and grow their businesses and make more money if they're comfortable with their current situation. And so somewhere in your life there's some discomfort, and that's manifesting into pain. And you know, there's going to be other situations in your life that you're not happy with, and you know, life is suffering. That's kind of tends to be a fact. And well, have you ever wondered who's actually to blame for all of this suffering? I'm sure you understand your current situation quite well and all the pain associated with it, but who's to blame? Like, who's sat in the background? What force is sort of like bringing all of this suffering about? And what savage thing would do this to you? Okay, you're in a situation, and you know, maybe things are okay now, maybe they're not, maybe you're struggling, maybe you're suffering, maybe you've got less clients than you need, or maybe you haven't got the money you need, or maybe your health's down in the gutter, or maybe you're ill, or there's all sorts of stuff that's happening to you that's making you sad, lonely, anxious, depressed, or otherwise neurotic. But like, what the hell would do this to you? Like, what sort of God or universal force would put someone in a situation such as yours? Well, this is important to understand. This is the savage thing. Okay, there's a force in the universe that determines the quality of your life. And there's something out there that causes all of the pain and the struggle and the suffering you've experienced on this spinning rock that we call Earth. And this savage thing is responsible for your situation. It's responsible for your life, and it's responsible for how you live. It's responsible for the amount of money you make, how happy you are. It's responsible for the quality of your relationships. Like, literally anything that you can think of in your life, whether you're happy or unhappy about it, is driven by this force. And this thing, this force, it has you in its grips and it controls your life. You know, it's got you by the heels. It's the monster under the bed. It's the thing that you're terrified of that, well, just seems to basically dictate everything in your life. All of that struggle and pain, there's this force that, you know, just seems to bring it about. But don't worry, I'm going to reveal this savage character to you and actually give you a playbook and show you how to defeat it. Because if you can learn how to defeat the thing that's responsible for all of the suffering in your life, then you're not going to suffer anymore. And that's quite the claim, but it's possible. So are you ready to learn who's responsible or what's responsible for all this pain? I'm going to reveal it to you now. And it's you. It truly is you. This dark force, this seemingly unexplainable, malevolent cause of all of your suffering is you. It's your fault. Now, this is a bitter pill to swallow, and you might notice some emotion or some ego bubbling up, but I'm going to explain this to you and explain why it's actually within your best interest to recognize that it's all your fault. And that's right, it's you, it's your fault. You are single-handedly responsible for your situation in life. And it's nothing else except from you. It's nothing external, okay? It's not the school system. It's not that virtual assistant you hired. It's not your internet connection. It's not your accent. It's not your niche. It's not your parents. It's not your peers. It's not your gender. It's not your government, your market. It's not your clients or your childhood. It's not the software. It's not your tech skills. It's not your personality. It's not your sales abilities. It's not Loom. It's not Gmail. It's not your upbringing. It's not that accident you had. It's not your appearance. It's not your office, city, friend, anxiety, literacy skills, addictions, team. It's not the thing you saw on the news. It's not the aches. It's not the pains that you've got in your leg. You know, you've got that carpal tunnel in your fingers that stops you from doing something. It's not that. It's not your age or your race or your email copy. It's not your sales script. It's not your media buyer. It's not your ads. It's not your gym. It's not your anything, right? All of these things are, well, they're not things that cause your suffering. It's you. And when observing this from a first person perspective, it's me. So it's not like, it's not my or your anything, it's me or you, and that's it. So what I mean by that is, well, I'm obviously talking from the perspective of talking to you. But when you're talking to yourself to explain why you're suffering, you've probably used the word my. When you use the word my and then tag on something else, what it does is it removes you of the responsibility, because it implies you're a victim to the thing that comes from that. So if you say, oh, I'm not where I want to be because of the government that's in, or I'm not in where I want to be because of my local politician, or I'm not where I want to be because of my tech skills. Now, when you do that, you're shifting the responsibility from yourself to the thing that you've tagged on to the end of the word my. In fact, my is one of the most dangerous words that you can use when it comes to explaining your situation, because it implies a serious lack of responsibility and control. And the first step to really getting what you want and transcending yourself and accomplishing the goal that you've laid out is to recognize that the situation that you're in that's causing this pain and this suffering is your doing. It's nothing external, right? It's not anything to do with anything except from you. And the sooner that you accept that, the sooner you will start to get what you want. And the harder it is for you to accept that, the stronger you need to try to accept it. And as soon as you say it's my something, then you class yourself as a victim to the thing that you tag on. And this mentality will manifest a life that seems totally uncontrollable and chaotic and, quite frankly, shit. Okay? As soon as you blame something other than yourself, you lose. It's that simple. Now, I'm not sitting here and pointing the finger at you. I'm just telling you what I've observed to be true with every successful person ever. They all have the same common underlying theme of taking responsibility. And I can tell you what will keep you poor, and that's pointing the finger to anything except from yourself. And if you do blame something else, if you blame an external circumstance, if you blame something, if you blame like, oh yeah, it's my introversion, or oh yeah, it's my VA, they fucked up that email. No, doesn't wash. Now, it's more comfortable, right? Like in terms of like psychologically, delusionally, it's more comfortable to blame something else than yourself. But in the long term, it's far more comfortable because it gives you this sense of control. And I don't know about you, but I would rather be in control, in pain, without delusion, than out of control, in pain, and with delusion. So you might as well pick the one that actually favors you. So it's not your anything. It's not my anything. It's all your fault. You are the savage thing that holds you back. And radical responsibility is the remedy to a shit life. So if your current situation, if you really don't enjoy where you're currently at, then it's time for you to look at your life and point at it and say, that's my mess. You know? You must make a decision right here and now to take full responsibility for your situation and how you respond to things. So notice the word responsibility, right? It's response and then basically ability. You have the ability to respond to things, and that implies that you get to choose how you respond. And sure, like life's going to throw things at you. I'm not denying that. But it's up to you to determine how you respond to those things and therefore move forward. So I want you to go ahead. I know we're jumping straight into the heat of this here, but I want you to write it down in your own words. This is all my fault. It's a painful thing to admit, but that pain is the nucleus for all the growth you're going to experience from here on out. So you can, like, owning this is an incredibly useful thing to do. So you can just basically write down on a piece of paper, I'm currently making $0 per month and it's my fault. Seriously, it might seem like a stupid thing to do. It might seem counterintuitive, but I promise facing this side of yourself is the most profitable thing you can do. And here's a quote for you. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in this space lies our ability to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And so this is a quote from Viktor E. Frankl, who's a Holocaust survivor. Now, what you'll notice here is I'm not calling him a Holocaust victim, because Viktor E. Frankl made a decision to not make himself a victim. If you read his book, Man's Search for Meaning, you can see that the man is anything but a victim. Now, from a third person observing Viktor Frankl's life, we would point and say, yes, this man is a victim to the, terrors of the Holocaust. But Viktor Frankl, he never pointed at the Holocaust and said, oh, it's my experience in the Holocaust that led to me being miserable. No, he pointed to his misery and said, it's my response to being in the Holocaust that created that. And if someone can sustain this attitude while going through one of the closest things to hell on earth that you can possibly read about, then well, I'm sure you can do it as well for how much money you're currently making. And you'll notice that the words that I've basically highlighted here in bold are growth and freedom. And so everyone wants freedom and everyone wants growth, but nobody wants to take responsibility for their life. And it's only through responsibility that we can accomplish these things. And so you have to sacrifice your delusional comfortability, basically, in order to sustain and achieve the growth that you so desire. You cannot have delusion in growth. It just doesn't work. And life doesn't happen to you. You happen to life. Now, most people think that life just happens to them and that's it. And, that's like the whole, like, it's my so-and-so. Like, people are like, oh yeah, it's my boss. They're the reason why I can't get this promotion and they're the reason why I'm stuck making this amount of money. Or, oh, honestly, it's just my niche. My niche is so saturated and that's why I can't get clients. Dude, I hear it every fucking day. And I'm sure you do as well. And now that you're aware of it, the next time you're about to say it's my something is when you're literally about to reinforce a victim mentality that strips you of the responsibility that you can leverage to actually respond to these things like appropriately and objectively and therefore achieve the growth you desire. And successful people understand that their situation in life is their fault. They're aware that the universe may have some nasty surprises in store for them, but they don't blame the nasty surprises for their lack of success and current situation. I'm not denying stuff is going to happen to you. There's no doubt about that, right? You just need to make sure you don't blame it for the situation you find yourself in. So, dude, the tragic things happen in people's lives. Family members pass away and die. There's recessions, there's suffering, there's natural disasters, there's like people could get stuff stolen from them. There's all sorts of nasty shit coming your way in the future that's going to happen to you and that can happen to you and that may do. Right? There's some things that are guaranteed in life, death and taxes. Those two things are on your way. And, you're going to lose people and you're going to lose loved ones. And that's a horrible thought to have to think, but it's likely. Okay? And it's absolutely vital that you recognize that these events in your life are going to happen. But when they happen, you cannot point the finger to the events. Okay? If your boss fires you, right? Instead of pointing the finger at the boss and saying, it's my boss, that's why I'm broke. It's my ex-boss, or it's this person, or it's that. Instead, point to yourself and say, hey, I did that, that's my fault. And as soon as you do that, your paradigm shifts and it gives you this sense of control and reality. So bad things are going to happen, but they don't happen to you if you decide to happen to them, right? And I want you to have this epiphany because this is how we gain control and really grip the steering wheel of life. And this is the most fundamental thing to sow into your paradigm because responsibility is the nucleus of growth. If you don't take responsibility for your life, then how the hell are you supposed to improve it? Because it's without control and without the sense you have of, without the sense of being able to direct and steer the thing, which is basically like, it's impossible to, like, if you're a captain of a ship, it's impossible to steer it if you don't think you're the person in charge of steering it. So like if there's a captain on a ship and it's heading for an iceberg and then the captain's just like, oh yeah, it's not my fault that the sea put that iceberg in the way. Like I'm just not going to bother. Or like, oh, it's not my fault that I got drunk because like I was drinking too much and like my dad used to drink and so I got into drinking and that's why I was drunk when the ship crashed into the iceberg. It's not my fault. But like if the captain was like, okay, this is my ship, I'm responsible for it, like they steer out the way. So like responsibility and control are the two things that you need to actually start to direct your life, because without them, well, what the hell do you have? Nothing. You end up believing that you're at the mercy of the tides of life. And that's that. So you've got your goal. At this point, we've defined your goal and what you want to achieve and accomplish, and that will change with time as you develop and achieve that goal. You'll have another one and come back to this training video. But now that you've got the goal, it's time to take responsibility, because if you don't, you're going to fuck it up. And this mindset training is optimized to help you achieve the goal in your last video. And the first thing you need to accept is that the person responsible for the situation you are trying to escape is staring you in the mirror every day. All the pain, all the suffering, all the difficulty, all of the struggle, all of the lack of motivation, all of the inconsistency, all of the self-hate, all of the anger, all of the anxiety, it's you. It's your fault, okay? And I'm not pointing the finger to try and rile up your ego and piss you off. I'm telling you because it's the truth. And it all starts with control. Now, you might feel uncomfortable. You might feel some shame or some guilt or some anger. That's good, right? You might feel relieved or inspired or happy. This is going to hit you in one of two different ways. What I can tell you is that if you don't feel some sort of emotion, then you haven't really digested what I've told you. And this is, well, like this thing should be hitting you like a fucking freight train. If it's not, if there's some sort of emotional reaction, like strong emotional reaction isn't incurred as a result of this, then it's a sign that your ego is blocking you, and you're probably clinging on to a blame that is so firm that anything challenging it is going to really upset you. You know, like a negative emotion is usually, like if this is offending you, then it's a sign that your ego is clinging on to an excuse because, well, you're too deluded to admit that it's your fault. That would be too painful. But you must let go of this if you want to grow and move forward. So as I'm saying this, perhaps you're like, I don't know, let's say that your father left you when you were younger, for example. And you might be pointing the finger at that and saying, like, no, it can't possibly be my fault. It's all his fault. You know, he left me and my family when we were younger, and that did this and that did that. And I didn't have a father figure, and so I can't be successful because I haven't got a role model. Like, I completely empathize with that perspective, and I understand everything that you've blamed. But you have to understand that, like, if you really want to do what's within your best interest, and if you really want to, like, show life who's boss, then it's time to let go of what you're blaming, and it's time to blame yourself. And as soon as you do that, it will not feel very comfortable, but it will give you this sense of control and this sense of drive and hunger, because, well, as soon as you admit it's your fault, then it puts the control back into your lap, because it's yours. It's your fault, and we can't clean up a mess that we don't own. So, well, you can technically, but you're not going to want to because it's somebody else's mess. But you need to clean your own shit up. And you have met the enemy, and the enemy is you. The dark force that I mentioned earlier that's holding you back, that seems to just be pulling you by the heels and, you know, dragging you back to that hellish place that you wish you weren't in. It's you. And it's time to understand the enemy. Self-transcendence requires self-acceptance, and self-acceptance requires self-understanding. Now that's a pretty important thing to differentiate between. I don't mean self-acceptance as in like just accepting yourself as who you are and that's it. I don't mean that. I mean you need to accept who you are as a product of your own actions and not the narratives of blame that you've sown into your paradigm. So let's get to fucking work. I mean this like, I'm not saying you need to accept who you are, like, oh, Charlie's just telling me to accept myself and that's fine. No, I'm just saying like you need to accept that who you are and what you currently have is the product of you, and you've built yourself, so you've built this life to spec. Everything you experience is your own fault, and you need to accept that, and the sooner you accept that, it allows us to start the transcendence process. So let's get to work. Who are you? Right? You are the enemy, and now we need to realize this. So far, we know your goal. You've defined what you want, and you've mapped out a tangible future event that you want to accomplish and a reality you want to manifest. And I've just told you that like the only person that's really in your way is yourself. There's no enemy. It's not your competition. It's not your niche. It's not your market. It's not your boss. It's not your ex-wife. It's not your, it's not your broken leg. It's not the wheelchair. It's whatever the hell you're blaming. Like none of that stuff is what is actually holding you back. It's really all you. And so if I want to help you achieve your goal, which is the only priority I have with this training, then I need to help you understand your enemy. And the enemy is you. So let's get to work on understanding who you are, because you can't really beat who you don't understand. So now you know it's all you. Let's get to it. So Sun Tzu said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. And this quote basically means like, if you understand who you are and the enemy, then you know what moves each person's going to make. Like you'll know your nature and like what sort of moves you're going to put on the battlefield. And if you understand the enemy, then, well, you'll be able to predict their moves and what they're going to do. And so you don't need to have any fear around the result. You know, you'll have won the battle before it's even fought because, well, you'll be able to foresee exactly what's going to happen before it happens. And so the reason I put this quote in here is because, like, the enemy is the self and it's who you currently are. And so by understanding that, because we need to understand it because we're going to fight it, then you're able to predict what sort of shit it's going to throw at you and what you have to contend with. So, like, business is basically just you against you. Everyone seems to think that business is like you against your competitors, or, you know, you against this person or you against that person, but it truly isn't. The only thing you're competing against is the old stagnant sense of self that you're trying to defeat. So we need to figure it out. So we're going to start by understanding how your brain works and work up from there. So to understand yourself, we need to understand your reality, because that is a reflection of who you are. We then need to understand your identity, and to understand your identity, we need to get to the beliefs. And to get to the beliefs, we need to get to the experiences, and to get to the beliefs, well, after we do that, to get to the experiences, we need to get to the processing. So we're going to approach this from a sort of first principles perspective. And I'm going to show you how really your reality is basically the result of information that you've processed. And this will all come back full circle as we progress through this video and the next video as well. So let's start by understanding your processing. Let's talk about this. And this is basically how your brain processes information. So information is the input of life. If we observe ourselves and our lives as systems, our reality and the situation that we live in, like our current circumstances, like that's the output of our existence. So some people, their output is building $1 billion company and changing the world, and other people are homeless and have no impact at all, and then their reality is kind of not very fun. And information is the input of life. So if those are the outputs, then information is the input, because information is like the core to anyone's manifestation of reality. It's where everything begins and starts. So how do we take in information? And well, it's pretty obvious, you know. How do we actually take in information? Well, we're going to be doing it through hearing, smelling, seeing, tasting, and feeling things. So what do you use to hear and smell and see and taste and feel things? Well, if you think it's the following 5 things, then you're wrong. It's not. We don't use the eyes to see. We don't use the ears to hear. We don't use the nose to smell. We don't use the mouth and the tongue to taste, and we don't use our skin to touch. These are sensory vehicles, but they don't actually accomplish what we think they accomplish. We use these things, our nose, ears, eyes, tongue, and skin, as a sensory vehicle to take in information, but it's actually processed into perceived experiences in the brain. So the information that comes from our environment, like the sounds and the smells and tastes and the visuals and what we feel on our skin, like that's just information. Doesn't really mean anything until it is taken in through our sensory organs and sent to the brain to be processed. And so the brain is really where the information is processed, and it all comes from the environment. So this is why you're basically a product of your environment, but we'll talk about that another day. And everything we experience is the perception of information. Now, this is where you can see why your paradigm is important, because how you process information will depend on your worldview. So the brain's the processing thing, and the information is the information. And basically every single human being has access to pretty much the same information. There's a few exceptions to that, because a lot of information you have to buy and some people don't have the resources. But like for the most part, like we can all go outside and like see the sun and like look at the blue sky, and we can hear like trees rustling, and you know, we can feel things, and we can taste food, and we can hear music. And if we want to, you know, obtain information, we can Google something. We've all got access to the same books. We've all got access to the same YouTube channels. We've got access to the same podcasts. Like, information isn't like, it's not the thing that really makes the difference in people's lives. Now, there's an element of this where like your big paradigm shifts will come from the information you're exposed to. So, these training videos, for example, these are like packeted information, like modules or gigabits that you then like listen to and see as you're watching this on the screen now, and your brain will process that information into an experience, and then that will solidify into your paradigm. But for the most part, like everybody's got access to the same information to a degree, and so it's not that. However, there is another way to experience things, and it's way more powerful than our 5 basic senses. So what you've got to realize is we experience things and we perceive and process things using our sensory organs, but that's not like the only way we build experiences, because your experiences really compound into your reality, and they compound into your sense of self, and we'll talk about that soon. However, there's another way we experience things, and this is through our mind. It's through our thoughts, it's through our memory and our imagination. So, as human beings, we have 2 unique abilities. The first is to remember, and the second is to imagine. Now, we build experiences from information in our environment. So information plus process in the brain equals experience. But we can also dream up information, and we can also create experiences and process experiences using the power of our mind. So we can do this from thoughts of the past and imaginations of the present and the future. So if you think back to something that happened to you when you were younger, and you shut your eyes and you imagine it, then, well, you're basically creating an experience, and your brain will store that as an experience. And likewise, if you imagine something into the future, then your brain will process that imagination as an experience. And your brain truly cannot tell the difference between like what you actually perceive in your mind, like what you think, and then what information actually comes in, because like information from your environment and information from your thoughts, like how the hell is the brain supposed to tell the difference between those 2 things? Because you can use your imagination to create images, and you can even like make sounds in your head. Like you can listen to music, like you can if you think of like a song, like you can sort of hear it in your head. You can shut your eyes and you can literally visualize different like things and think up like situations and visualize them. You can imagine that people are talking, you can imagine that you're feeling certain things, and as you really progress, you can start to eventually build taste into this and like colors and everything. So you can create experiences in your mind, as well as experiencing things through your sensory organs. And like, the subconscious base level mind cannot tell the difference between something that happened in real life and something that happened in the imagination. And what this means is that if we replay a memory from the past or imagine a situation in the future, then the brain will process that thing as if it's happening in real life. And so if you don't believe me, then just think back to something embarrassing or scary and just watch your body react as if it was a real life experience. So just, close your eyes for a second, and we've all had something embarrassing, right? In the past, we've all done something embarrassing. We've all been scared before. So I want you to just shut your eyes and just start to visualize in as much detail as you can the embarrassing experience. You just shut your eyes and just think back to like one thing, and then you'll just watch as your body starts to cringe. Watch as you start to tighten up and just go, oh God, or like you might start blushing, you might start feeling embarrassed, you might start sweating a bit. And then do the same thing for a scary situation, like an emotionally terrifying time. Like shut your eyes and take yourself back to something scary. It could be a movie, could be an experience you had before. And you might even not have to have experienced it from the information in the environment. You could even just make something up. So like, I've never experienced drowning before, but I could visualize that, and like my body would respond in like a stressed way. So like your body will give you these clues that your brain basically can't tell the difference between an imagined experience and one that's happened in the reality. And so here's an example. I used to be afraid of flying as a kid. And sometimes I would create imaginary experiences so vivid in my body that my body would literally enter like fight or flight. Pun not intended with the flight part. But you can see my point. Like you can create like an experience. Another example, like if you wake up in the night and you wake up from a nightmare, you might be covered in sweat, like your heart's racing, you're ready to take some sort of immediate action, you like spring out of bed. Like these are like your body and your mind are convinced that something's awful happening, but it really was just your brain that created the experience. It's all in your head, but your body and your subconscious mind treats it as a real, genuine experience. And another example is the man and the hot coals that were actually ice cubes. So there's a study done, a really famous one, where scientists, they took this guy and they basically sat him down and they took his t-shirt off. And what they did is they showed this guy some really hot coals, like between these like big, industrial tweezers. And then they said, okay, well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this hot coal really close to your back, just to see like how, like, you're gonna tell us how hot and how cold it feels, like in relation to how close it actually is to your body. And like then what they did is they had no intention of putting the hot coal on the guy's body, and they didn't do that. But they started moving the hot coal closer and closer, and the guy was like, yeah, getting hotter and hotter. And then they were like, okay, well, you can feel how hot that is, right? And then he was like, yeah, it feels really hot, like it's an inch away from my body. I can definitely feel that. And then what the scientists did is they basically, like, they replaced the hot coal really quickly with an ice cube, and then they really quickly, like, pushed the ice cube against the guy's back. And the dude literally thought that he'd just been, like someone just pushed a really burning, like, smouldering white coal into his back. And so he just reacted accordingly. You can just imagine, like, standing up, like flying up, like clenching your traps and your back together, and like he genuinely was convinced, like he felt a burning hot coal pushed against his back, because that was what he was imagining. That's like the body wasn't able to tell the difference. And what really like got me going and what really solidified this here was when like his skin started to actually blister. So like his skin actually started to like produce burn blisters, and that was when scientists realized, like, holy shit, like this is your brain can create experiences just as easily as like your sensory organs can, and your thoughts can do this as well. Because obviously, like, the information from the environment, like it was not really a hot coal, but his imagination was that it was, and so that was how the body reacted. And there's other examples of this, like the placebo effect. It's pretty cool. So we can feed the mind information and therefore experiences from our environment, memory, and imagination. And it will not know the difference, and it will treat all information the same way. And I'm sure you can think of multiple examples, right? You know, the ability to create experiences purely from thought is a gift to those who understand it and a curse to those who don't. So the reason I'm telling you this is because your experiences are basically like you, and they form your beliefs and what you believe to be true. So that guy believed that he had a hot coal pressed against his back, and so his like whole entire being responded as if that belief was true. And if you understand that, like, well, everything that you think is an experience, and that's how you create yourself, then you'll be able to start altering your thoughts and making adjustments to your mental processing, so that you can start to create experiences that may not currently be manifested in reality, but eventually will be by the power of thought. Now, a lot of people talk about the law of attraction and stuff, and this is not really along those lines because people don't really understand it, but it's pretty cool. And I'm sure you can think of examples, so that's that. So why is this important, and like, how is this understanding a gift to some and a curse to others? Well, now that we've understood like how the brain processes information, how we can create experiences using our mind, let's start to understand your experiences. So a piece of information is processed to create an experience, and we are the product of our experiences. So at this point, you should understand that your current situation is your fault, right? It's just up until this point, you didn't know it, right? As you've gone through life, you've been exposed to information directly from your environment, and then also in your imagination and memory. So like, I'd invite you to try and challenge this. Like, what else can you think of except from information that will create your experiences? Like, there's nothing else. Like, your brain creates, like, well, it's your mind really, but your brain is sort of like the thing that your mind sits in. There's nothing else. Like, it has to take something in to create something. Your life and your situation is what you've created. We know that's true because it's, your responsibility. So how the hell, like, do we get there? Well, it's all through information, and that information isn't just through environment, it can be through imagination. So all of this information has been processed into experiences, and different people process information in different ways, and this is why your paradigm is important. One piece of information to one person can process and an experience totally different to another person. And experiences are how your beliefs, both about the world and your place in it, form. Okay? Your experiences truly do determine your reality. And where you are right now is the sum product of your experiences. Now, like, this is as fundamental as it gets. Like, who you are and like where you are is a result of who you are, and who you are is a result of what you've experienced. And one experience had by one person, one time, can manifest into an entire reality. I'm going to give you an example in a second. So here's an example of how this works, because this might not be like solidified in your mind yet. I want to give you like a real tangible example. So what do I mean by this? One experience had by one person, one time, can manifest an entire reality. Well, here's an example, right? So as a kid, I was told by an art teacher that I couldn't draw. And this was information processed by my eyes and my ears, right? Seeing and hearing the art teacher. And after this sensory experience, I proceeded to replay the experience in my memory over and over. So like my teacher was like, hey, Charlie, you're just really bad at drawing. And then I went home and I was like thinking like, oh, she said I'm really bad at drawing. She said I'm bad at drawing. And I would just continuously play it over and over and over again. So like I had this experience once, right? And once isn't usually enough to build like an entire paradigm or self-perspective around a certain thing. But it's through replaying it over and over again in my mind that the belief started to solidify. Because every time you replay a thought, or every time you replay like something that denotes your self-image in relation to something in the world, then you're reliving an experience and solidifying a belief. So every time I tried to draw, I'd obviously screw it up. And this would reinforce the belief I can't draw. And fast forward to today, like literally part of my self-image is I can't draw, right? I haven't got round to fixing this one yet because, well, quite frankly, I don't really care too much about whether or not I can draw. You've got to pick your battles here. So when we talk about self-transcendence, like it is more than possible to change like your entire existence and who you are. But generally, you kind of want to prioritize the things that move the needle. So whether I can draw or not is not going to have too much of an impact on how much money I can make and how much I can help you guys achieve your goals. Like if my goal was to become like one of the best artists in the world, then I'd probably have to do some work on the whole I can't draw thing. But this is just an example that I want to give you. Like I'm well aware of this thing. I'm like, there's all sorts of these little ones that I don't really care about. And like it really does just come from like one person saying one thing one time. So like another example of this is like, well, everyone's belief around money. So like some people believe that money's scarce and hard to come by. And well, how could their belief be anything other than that if all they've ever been exposed to is experiences that tell that tale and explain that narrative? So like, you know, maybe you're like 7 years old and then your father sits you down, like your idol and your role model, and that's all you see the parent as God at the time. And like your father says, hey son, or like, hey daughter, just so you know, money is really hard to come by and it's really hard to make money. Now you're going to take that, you know, first experience, like this sort of genesis experience, if you like, for this belief around money. Because as a kid, like when you're like fucking 6 years old, you don't really have any concept as to how easy money is to make. It's not until someone says something or you see something like on the news where it's like, oh yeah, money, this thing's hard to make, or like we're in a recession, like money's hard to come by. And then like you just start playing this over and over again in your memory to reinforce your experiences. Like one thought processed one time from one person becomes an ultimate reality. And so that one conversation you have with your dad, you'll start to think it over and over again. And then you'll start to look for like evidence to confirm that's the truth. And then it will feed back on itself. And so one thing said one time ages ago can create a belief that crafts your entire identity. So every single belief that you hold at the moment has a genesis. It has like a conception. It has there was like one piece of information or one sensory or visual experience or thought experience that you've had created that entire belief. So for example, let's say that you are, I don't know, it could be like a fear. Let's say that you're afraid of, I don't know, like needles, right? Well then, like, people aren't just like born with these fears. Like, it's just like what happens is when you're young, someone's like, oh, needles are terrifying. And then you start replaying that in your mind over and over again. And then by the time you go to get your first injection, you've convinced yourself that needles are terrifying. And so you get the injection, and then your body responds in accordance with that belief because it doesn't have any other option, because we don't behave out of accordance with our beliefs. And then like you get the injection, it's a horrible experience. And then because it's horrible, it reinforces the idea that needles are horrible. And then this thing just feeds back on itself. And then fast forward to middle age, and you've got this phobia of needles that manifested purely because like you read something when you were like 8. It's like, seriously, this is how this shit works. Every belief you have has a genesis. And imagine that if that art teacher was having a good day and they were like, hey, actually, Charlie, you're really good at drawing. That's amazing. Like I'd have a totally different reality. So like your reality at the moment is kind of like a butterfly effect. Like it's based around the law of sensitive dependence on initial conditions. Like whether or not you think you're good at something, or whether or not you hate something, or whether or not you believe something to be true is dependent on like the first thing that someone told you, and then that's based on like how believable they are and how much of an authority they are. Most people just like scroll through Facebook, and then like they see someone say something about someone, and then that's their opinion, and then like they start to reconfirm it and start to look for evidence to confirm it, and it's just it's just a fucking nightmare. So one piece of information can be the cause of your entire demise in life. And that information may or may not be faulty, right? So like everyone thinks money's hard to come by. I can tell you now that money is not hard to come by. Money is only hard to come by when you think money is hard to come by. Appointments are hard to book when you believe appointments are hard to book. Objections are hard to handle when you believe objections are hard to handle, right? It doesn't, like the information that you've built your entire paradigm and worldview around, and the entire reality you've manifested out of your identity it probably is not in alignment with the true nature of the world, because there really is no true nature of the world. It's always subjective to what the person perceives. Now, we touched on this in the paradigm module, but I just want to reinforce it because it's so important to understand. So, like I said, maybe you heard someone say appointment booking is hard, and well, I can tell you that appointment booking is only as hard as you believe it to be. So now that we've understood like your experiences, and we know that you process information through your senses and also through your imagination and your thoughts, and we understand how your experiences form, and like the experiences can basically dictate your entire life. Let's talk about actual beliefs and identity and how this ties in. So how do beliefs form? Well, I want you to actually just imagine something for me a second here. I want you to like picture yourself stood in the middle of a big flat pole with 2 buckets attached to either side, one green and one red. Now that might be a strange sort of visual, but just shut your eyes and, just imagine yourself sort of like, I don't know, like floating in the air, like, and then there's this in the air, like suspended by gravity, there's a big like pole. And then on either end of the pole, you've got buckets. One of them on one end is green and the other one is red. And these like, they're big buckets. And right now, like, they're not full of anything. The pole is perfectly balanced. Okay. So this is like an image you might have in your head. This is basically what this looks like. And this here is how we understand beliefs. And I'm going to give you this metaphor, and this will click, and it will help you really just digest like how you've become who you are. And this is the key to everything, like buckets and poles. I'm not even joking. So it's a strange picture, but just let me explain. So what I want you to do is picture this and understand that the black line represents anything in your life. Right? It can be something about yourself or something about the world. Basically, this is like the thing in question that we are forming beliefs around, or identity or self-beliefs around. So you've got 2 types of belief. You've got like beliefs about yourself, and then you've got beliefs about the world. So you've got beliefs about how the world works, and then you've got beliefs about like how you work and your place in the world. But this black line, it can be anything. It can be like literally anything. And the green bucket represents the positive experiences you have had about this thing. And the red bucket represents the negative experiences you've had about this thing. Now, here's you, and you're in the middle, right? And this is like when you're born, like every human when they're born, they're in the middle, right? That's like this pole, there's no negative or positive experiences to actually like weigh anything. So like the truest, most objective humans possible without any bias is basically newborn babies, but they're not conscious, so it doesn't matter. So here's you with your senses and your imagination and memory. And, every day, every minute, every second of every day, literally you're processing information to either create negative or positive experiences about things, right? Everything. right? Every thought you have, every imagination, every visual in your brain, every memory you think up, everything you look at, everything you hear, like if it's something that you can form like a negative or positive experience around it, well then you're going to basically fill up one of these buckets. So every time you have a positive experience about the thing in question, then the green bucket fills with water. And every time you have a negative experience about the thing in question, then the red bucket fills with water. And it's important to know that different experiences will have different intensity of sentiment and emotion. So some experiences will fill the bucket more than others. So let's say that the thing in question is like, I don't know, like sales calls, and like you take a sales call and you have a sales call and it goes like really, really badly. Like the prospect is really horrible and nasty, and like they swear at you and they say you're the worst salesperson ever. Like that's going to have a different like intensity. That's going to fill up the red bucket with way more water than a sales call where someone's like, hey, I just don't think I want to buy right now. So you like the intensity of the experience is also going to have an impact on how much the bucket is filled up. And the scale is going to tip depending on which bucket has more water in it. And the extent to which it tips is obviously going to depend on how much more water is in one bucket than the other. So here's an example, right? So this thing in question, the green bucket is heavier than the red bucket. So the scale tips. Now the scale will tip in accordance with how heavier it is. And what we would say for this thing in question is that we have had more positive experiences than we have negative experiences about this thing. Now, once again, like you may have had like 100 negative experiences about this thing, but then one positive thing comes along and it completely rebalances like the thing, completely swings it the other way. So maybe you've had like 100 back-to-back sales calls say no, and then you suddenly have one person who pays you like $1 million on the call. Right? That like $1 million thing is going to outweigh the 100 no's by a mile. So in this example, the scale is tipping towards positive experience, and quite steeply too. And this happens when a person in question has more positive experiences than negative ones. And this is obviously by a long shot. So for example, this could be my sales abilities. So I'm at the point now where I've had way more positive sales experiences than negative ones. And so my scale for sales would look something like this. In fact, it would probably be even more tilted. It would be like basically like vertical to the point where everything is on the green, and in fact the red bucket is almost like gone. I've obviously had negative experiences before, but I've learned how to empty the red bucket and constantly fill up the green bucket. And like here's another example that this scale is biased and works towards negative experiences, and this implies the person in question has had more negative experiences with the thing in question than positive ones. So this could be like my artistic abilities, for example, right? Like I tell myself I can't draw, and then I try and draw something I can't draw, and then like I've never ever drawn something properly, so this would probably tip like really heavily into the red. And so every time you have an experience about anything, you're either filling up the green bucket or the red bucket. That's it. Like that's what experiences do. Whether they're real life, like sensory experiences, or visualized imaginary experiences, the brain has no choice but to fill one of these buckets up. Like one of these buckets has to be filled up. Now, the intensity will depend on how like strong, how much emotion is invoked by the thing, but one of them's got to be filled. It's impossible for us to not have an experience. Well, it's impossible for us to have an experience as a human and not fill up one of these buckets. So like, you know, you can have all like bucket, there's any like hundreds, if not thousands or millions of combinations of variables. You can have like over here on the left, like extremely positive experiences and no negative ones. And then you can have like somewhat negative or somewhat positive or somewhat negative or extremely negative. Like everything in your life, every single thing is basically like your perception of it and your belief of it is a result of how much water is in each of these buckets. And remember that these positive or negative experiences about the thing in question don't have to be sensory. They can be imaginary or memory based, and you can fill the buckets either way. So like if we take this one, for example, like my sales abilities, I could sit and visualize and think of like thousands and thousands and thousands of amazing sales calls. And by doing that, like, and I'm going to teach you how to actually visualize stuff like properly as we progress through the next couple of training videos. This is just more the theory for now, but like by doing that, I can actually create experiences and consistently add and drop new water into the green bucket and remove the stuff from the red bucket. And like, it's insane to me, like how people don't know this stuff works. Like, people talk about visualization and affirmations and stuff, but people don't look at it like this. Like, it's a bucket and you just fill it. And the more you fill it, the more you think of it, the better you become, and then it just sort of feeds back on itself. And same with my artistic abilities. Like, I've even said it multiple times on this video, like, I can't draw. Every time I say I can't draw, it adds another drop to the red bucket and just keeps on tipping. So the scales represent your beliefs. So who are you? Well, the scales represent your beliefs. You have countless beliefs about literally everything you've ever observed or experienced. And every piece of information you've ever received, ever thought, or ever had, every imagination, every memory, every visual, like every time you've had an experience, every time information has entered your brain and been processed through senses or through imagination or thought, then you've poured water into either the negative or the positive bucket. Every time, without fail. And in doing so, without realizing, you've created beliefs. This is how beliefs form, right? Beliefs aren't just some weird magical manifestation as a result of luck or something. No, they are like, they operate on a spectrum, like how positive or how many negative experiences you've had about a certain thing will depend on what you believe to be true about it. And any belief you've had about anything is simply a mental representation, a manifestation of how you've poured the scales. Extremely negative beliefs about things manifest when you've stacked the scales extremely negatively, and vice versa for positive. It cannot be any other way. Every belief you have, right, whether or not you believe in a religion, or whether maybe that I'm not going to extend this to religion because I don't understand it enough, and I understand that spirituality can transcend this stuff sometimes, but like the political party you lean towards, whether you think you're a vegan, whether you like steak, whether you're good at ice hockey, whether you can like do DIY, how good you are at fucking assembling flat pack furniture, I don't care. All of these things that you believe about yourself are a result of this. Okay? And like, it cannot be any other way. So it's really important to realize this. And this is the key to understanding yourself. You are the sum collection of all the scales you've ever stacked. You, quote unquote, you, like the self, the identity, is an aggregate of everything you believe yourself to be. And what you believe yourself to be is simply the sum of all the imaginary and real world experiences you've ever had. And this is it. Who you are, well, what I'm saying is you are who you think you are. You can't have a thought without creating, you can't think about something without creating an experience about that thing and adding something to one of these like buckets. So like, this is like the burden of consciousness, because you better fucking watch the thoughts. Because if you're not careful and you start thinking sales is hard, or outreach is hard, or business is hard, or hiring is hard, then you're going to start to confirm this self-belief around this thing being hard, and then you're fucked, because, well, you kind of have to undo that. You're not fucked. This can be undone, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And everyone goes through life asking, who am I? And this is the answer. So the other problem with this now is like, we've got this sort of like 21st century trend of everyone trying to find themselves and like think, who am I? And like everything, we're always trying to look to see if something is like us or not like us, or in alignment with who we are or not in alignment with who we are. And this is extenuated and like this is accelerated rather by social media algorithms. Like they're like echo chambers. So like if you think that you are if you think that you're a right-wing person politically, then you're going to engage with more right-wing content, and then social media algorithms will show you more right-wing content, and you'll reinforce and like accelerate the belief. And if you believe that appointment booking is hard and sales is hard, then, well, you're going to start to like engage with that stuff like in your life. And like the universe is like a social media algorithm where like things will start to sync up, and then like you'll start to look for other things, and then you'll find other people that are finding the same thing hard, and then like you'll talk about it, and then you'll start seeing more stuff that proves it's hard, and then this thing will just cycle and cycle and cycle, and you'll continuously stack the scales negatively. And like this is a problem, because the only real way to book appointments consistently is to take action on it and do it properly and clearly with rationality and objectivity. And you can't behave in that way if you believe it's fundamentally difficult, because you won't even try. So most people are like fucked, because like most people think like, for example, like one of the things in business is everyone thinks that like the niche is saturated, or everyone thinks all good ideas have been done before. Like that, these are beliefs, these are belief statements, these are like belief truths, and that people have just continuously poured the water into the red bucket, so much so that they can't even take action because, well, the belief is the thing that's like basically limiting them. So do you actually want to see what you look like? Well, it would look like this. Okay, so if I just zoom in here into this slide, if I zoom in, what you'll see is we've got like, I don't know how many, but we've got a lot of these scales, right? Like, you know, this sort of thing here, if we wanted to actually like map out you and who you are, it would basically be the sum of every scale you've ever stacked ever. Now, there's going to be some stuff on here that you haven't stacked. So, for example, let's take the topic of underwater basket weaving. How good are you at underwater basket weaving? Well, the chances are is you've never ever done underwater basket weaving before, and so you're not really like, you haven't really got any beliefs around that. So you're not gonna have beliefs about everything everywhere, because like, you know, another example would be like how tall you believe. I don't know, like it could be anything. You get my point. I'm just trying to think of an example here, but like how like good you are at underwater basket weaving as an example, or like how good you are at bricklaying, for example. Like, have you ever done bricklaying before? Like, if you have, then you've you've definitely stacked a scale about it. But if you've got no experiences around something, then you can't form a belief. And this is why, like, a lot of people find it easier to go from 0 to 100k a month with like the right training, because if they actually expose themselves to the right experiences off the bat, then, and like they haven't got any like preconditions or any like negative beliefs to start, then it's a lot easier. But most people have to like undo all this negative shit. So what you see on the screen here is just basically you, right? Thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands or even millions of little scales stacked negatively or positively form your entire identity and sense of self. That's it. All the beliefs. You are the aggregate of what you believe you are. The self doesn't exist, really. It's not a tangible, like, thing that you can grip. It's basically just you clinging to experiences and stories about the past that don't really have any truth, which is quite sad, but it's true. And if we zoom in here, like, these can be beliefs about anything. So you might have, like, a scale for, like, Hitler, and you might have a scale for beans, right? Everything is in here. So, like, how much you hate Hitler, there's going to be a scale for that. How much you like beans, there's going to be a scale for that. Like, your belief about whether Hitler was, like, a good person or a bad person, like, obviously the latter, bad. But then you're going to also have a belief, like, how easy is it to grow beans? You know, like, every single thing that you could think of, every experience you've had about anything is stacking a scale, and as soon as you have an experience, a scale is formed, and that belief basically becomes your reality. So, like I said, if you think business is hard, then business will be hard. But if you don't think it is hard, then it won't be hard. Now, like, there's caveats to this where, like, business is, like, it's not going to be easy if you're brand new to it and don't know what you're doing. But business, like, for Jeff Bezos is easy. But business for someone starting out is not easy. So it's not like a question of, like, whether it's hard or easy. It's a question of, like, who you are and who you believe yourself to be as to whether or not, like, you can actually accomplish the thing. And, like, don't delude yourself. Like, when you're getting started, business is going to be hard. But it's not hard if you become the person that makes it easy. So you have a scale, right? And this scale, like, these scales, they measure your place in the world for everything, like literally everything. So how good you are at so-and-so, or whether you like this, or what you hate, or what you're interested in, or what makes you tick, or what makes you happy, or what makes you sad. Like, everything to do with you and yourself, you have a scale for that you can perceive. And besides, what are we if not what we perceive ourselves to be? Well, we'd be nothing. And the key to self-transcendence is to isolate the scales that really matter to the achievement of our goal and start working to tip them back into our favor. So, like, this is like the real root of the limit that you're experiencing. Because if your goal is, like, if your belief systems and your sense of self and identity is not, like, up to par with what your goal is, then you're kind of screwed. So if your goal is to make 100k a month, then, and you know that the math lines up that you need like a 20% sales conversion rate, but you believe that you're the kind of person that's introverted and can't sell, then you're not going to hit 100k a month, because your beliefs and your sense of identity are out of alignment with the belief and identity you need to actually have to manifest the goal. Now, don't worry if that's the case for lots of things, because throughout this video and the next video, I'm going to give you an understanding and a framework to completely break down your sense of self and erode it and form a new one. Now, I'm not going to be using this as any sort of there's no sinister intentions here. I'm not going to tell you to change your religion or believe this or believe that. I'm not going to tell you to disown anyone or any of that stuff. That's not what these videos are for. These videos are to help you realize that you are who you are, but it doesn't have to be that way and stay that way. And so, you've got these scales and we can tip them. You can literally, it's kind of just imagine that you visualize right in front of you right now, a little black pole with a little person on the top that represents you. And then you've got 2 little plastic buckets and you've got these drops of water, and you can just basically be bloop, and you can just put a little bit of water into the green one, or bloop, a bit of negative water, and then it'll balance out, and then you can just label that belief, and then it's literally that's how it works. So now we need to understand your reality. So let's summarize what we've learned. So let's go from the top. So your current situation is your fault. You create experiences by processing information, either sensory via senses or hallucinatory via imagination or memory. And your experiences stack positive and negative scales and compound to form beliefs. And the aggregate of all the beliefs is you, right? Your identity, your self-image, who you are, is the sum of all the scales you've stacked. And you create your own reality in accordance to how you see yourself and your place in the world. So the main thing that will determine the outcome of your life, and the main thing that will determine your situation, is the action you take and the behavior that you partake in. And as humans, we tend not to behave in a way that is out of alignment with what we fundamentally believe to be true or how we see ourselves. So someone who sees themselves as an introvert and someone who's stacked the introvert scale so hard, they will never act as an extrovert. So a lot of people, when they set a goal, is they try to take the action, but when it's impossible to consistently act in a way that is out of alignment with who we are. So if you need to get good at sales and you're awful at sales, then just doing sales calls, that won't solve the problem, right? The problem is it's the sales call and the action of the sales call is upstream from the root of the cause, which is the identity. So I see this a lot where this is why I'm recording this mindset training, is because right now, we've got one client, for example, right? And his goal is to get to $30,000 a month. And he initially, when he came on board, he was I need the meetings, and I think now he's booking 2 or 3 meetings a day. And what's happening is he's booking all these, he's doing 10 to 15 high quality sales calls per week, but he can't close any of them. So he's doing the action, he's behaving, he's doing the thing consistently. He's doing the sales calls, but his sense of self and his belief around sales, it's stacked so negatively in certain ways that even though he's doing the calls and getting the calls, when he's behaving on the calls, he's just doing it in a way that aligns with his belief. So he's getting on the call and thinking, sales is hard, I'm an introvert, I can't sell, I can't persuade, people are going to call me out, oh God, this is awful, sales is awful. And how the hell can you expect someone to act and behave differently to that? You just can't. All of your action is basically a manifest of what you believe and how you perceive. So if you want to fix your life, you need to fix your actions. But you can't just fix the actions. You can, but it takes a lot longer and it takes a lot harder. You can just be extremely stubborn and act in a certain way. But if you want the easiest, most efficient way to do this, you have to address the identity, because if you fix the person, then you fix the behavior. And then if you fix the behavior, you fix the reality. So the self you've developed with all this scale stacking manifests your current reality. And this loops back to the start of the video. And this explains why your situation is your fault and you're doing. So if you didn't believe me earlier, when I said it's your fault, you should now be able to see why it's your fault, right? Because if you have a situation and you're not happy with it and you're blaming someone else, well then that's you've stacked the scale of the victim. Every time that you have an experience, every time you say it's my boss's fault or it's my so-and-so's fault, then you're creating an experience in your mind. and you're stacking the scale of like how much responsibility you have. So I've stacked the responsibility scale to basically like the furthest degree humanly possible. Like every day I'm like, it's my fault, it's all my responsibility, this is my fault, it's all my doing. Like constantly having these thoughts and trying to re-entertain these ideas to the point now where like, dude, literally like someone could like steal my car and I'd be like, yeah, that was my fault. Like that, I will always try to look for the responsible. Now I'm not going to take this to an extreme where like, you know, if one of my family members died, I'm not going to be like, that's my fault, because there's an element of it where like you eventually could create this like sense of like existential suffering where you no longer have any control and no hope. So you don't want to take it too far. But what I would say is okay, well, it's not my fault that my family member has passed away, but it's my fault that I've like taken that in a really negative way. Now obviously you're going to have to grieve, and like I totally understand these things, but in the long term, like whether or not that makes or breaks you is really up to you. And you might not think it is, but it is. And if you don't think it is, then well, you won't try, and then you're not going to do it. So you see, in simple form, your beliefs become your reality, and beliefs are reality. So you are the sum of all the beliefs you have about yourself. You create your own reality, and you can only create a reality in alignment with that which you perceive yourself to be. If you perceive yourself to be bad at sales, then your reality will be that sales is hard. And if you perceive yourself to be an incredible cook, then you'll make incredible meals. And this is called praxis. There's a word for this, right? This word denotes allowing beliefs to dictate our behavior. And after all, it's our behavior and actions that determine our place in this world, and this all stems from beliefs. So life is cause and effect, right? You know, if you want to, like for example, if I pick up my water bottle on the right side of my desk, and then I move it over to the left side of my desk, then I've just like taken an action and a behavior to change my current reality, right? And the same thing is like, it's as simple as picking up a water bottle and putting it down somewhere else to change my reality. It's no different from like isolating an action in business, taking that action and then seeing the effect. Like it's the same thing. It's all the same thing. It might be easier to just pick up a bottle, but like the simplicity like is still like irrelevant. So like here's me on the right thinking like, you know, like I'm extremely good at sales and I'm the best objection handler on the planet. Like my self-image is being really good at sales. I've got another self-image, another scale I've stacked is being able to record lengthy videos without having to take any pauses. Like another example. So my reality is being able to sit down and record 2 to 3 hour long complicated mindset training videos without having to take breaks or pauses or having to edit anything. And like other people, if they sat down to try and record videos, like their reality would be that they have to stop and they keep umming and ahhing and changing and like having to edit everything out because like they keep making mistakes. But like I've just basically stacked my green bucket so much for recording videos easily that now I sit down and I can just start recording without mistakes. And the same thing's true for my YouTube channel. Like everything it comes from this. Like with my YouTube channel, people are like, who edits your videos? I'm like, nobody edits my videos. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I'm the kind of person to just sit down and just record. I don't have to really edit anything. But then they're like, oh, I have to edit my videos. And I'm like, well, it's an identity thing. Like you believe that you're not articulate and you believe you can't speak fluently without mistake. So of course you're going to behave in that way. So identity is the root of everything. It's the root of all of our realities. My reality is lots of sales and no video editing. And that's because I believe I'm good at sales and I don't have to edit videos because I'm good. And then other people will believe that they're bad at sales and have no sales. And then they believe they're not very good at talking. So then they have to do all this stuff that keeps editing. You see my point. Very sort of simple examples, but you can apply this to anything. If you want to change your reality via accomplishment of your goal, then you need to change your beliefs. You might think this is easier said than done, but well, honestly, like not necessarily. Like changing yourself when you've got the right playbook is not actually that difficult. It just takes time. And like you have to have this belief that it's possible as well. So where do beliefs come from? Well, let's actually start with the sales belief, right? So let's just say that I'm the little kid here, right? And then the green person is my mother. So this is actually true. When I was younger, because I've really meditated on this stuff for like a long time. Like all of my beliefs and situations and my realities, I'm like, Charlie, your reality is that, you know, sales is easy. Why? And then I had to go back and I was like, well, I think it's easy. Why do I think it's easy? And then I had to just bring it all back to this thing. So when I was younger, I have a pretty distinct memory of my mum basically saying like, hey, Charlie, you're really good with words. You're really good with people. In the UK, we have this saying called gift of the gab. And like my mum used to say like, yeah, you've got the gift of the gab and you're just, you know, you're really charming and great with people and, you know, you're really convincing and persuasive and you make people really happy. And I think you're really good with people. And like, that was what my mum used to tell me. And like, when parents take this too far, they build narcissisms, but my mum managed to do this in a really good way. And I'm very grateful for it. And like, you know, she helped me form this belief. And when I was a kid, I was like, you know, I remember once when, we had, when I was in this has literally just come back to me and it's just an example. Christ, it's funny how this stuff works. When I was younger, in my old home, when I was a kid, probably like, I don't know, like 8 or 9 or something. We had this like delivery driver. This guy was like, I think it was like postman or something. And I answered the door because like, well, nobody else got to the door in time. And then like the postman was there. And then I was like talking to the postman and obviously I did something right. Because my mum was like, oh, I was just listening to that conversation with the postman, Charlie. You did really well there. And I think you really made him happy. You're great with people, aren't you? And I was like, oh, really? Like, that's awesome. So like, this is like the inception, the genesis of my sales belief. Like, whereas like the antithesis of this would be if my mum was like, oh, Charlie, like you really didn't handle that conversation well. I don't think you should talk to people very often because, well, you're not very good with people. So what happened here is like that one experience, like sensory experience in terms of like the sort of like hearing my mum's voice and seeing her and like her telling me that I'm good with people. Like as I was growing up, like I kept sort of replaying that in my memory. And so every time I would go out to like act and talk to people, I'd be like, oh, I'm good with people. Like I can do this. I'm a good talker. And like people ask me all the time when it comes to recording videos and YouTube, and they're like, Charlie, how do you articulate yourself so well, and how do you like seemingly think clearly and continuously like articulate yourself without mistake? And there's no real answer other than this thing. So like as I'm growing up as a kid, like I'm just imagining, like I'm replaying these memories. So I'm replaying the conversation with the postman over and over again because obviously it feels good. You know, like we will replay things in our head. We will replay memories and we will imagine things if they stir up emotion. So I'm sure you've caught yourself before imagining a situation that causes terrible anxiety, but you can't help but keep thinking about the thing. Like your brain, like it loves this sort of emotional stimulation. Emotions are very addictive by their nature. And so like you might catch your brain like sometimes thinking up, like I used to do this with blood tests, for example. I used to be really scared of blood tests. And sometimes I'd catch myself just like imagining getting a blood test and then getting all like cringed out and horrible. Like I would continuously repeat that and then I'd hate blood tests. But in this instance, like with sales, I'd like, because it made me feel good, I'd be like, yeah, I had that great conversation. And then it would continuously cycle and cycle. And so what would then happen is I became an adult and I was still cycling this. And as I'm going through my adult life, I keep receiving feedback from more people saying I'm good with people because, well, I've convinced myself that I'm good with people. And then this manifests into me taking up a career as a salesperson, right? Because, you know, like when you go to like career advisors and stuff, they're like, well, what are you good with? Like, what are you good at? And I'm like, well, I'm good with people because that's how I've manifested myself. And then they're like, oh, well, you should try sales. And then you get into sales and then, you know, you get on the phone and by this point you've convinced yourself you're so good with people that sales just comes naturally to you. And so then like you start taking the action of being a good salesperson, right? And, you know, you're on the call and you're handling objections really well. And then you make money. And by this point you don't know it because people just don't really realize this stuff. But like this is how the scale looks. It starts when you're young. It's reinforced over time. You continuously act in accordance with it and you keep receiving feedback from other people. And then by the time that, you know, it's time to start reaping the rewards or the very negative consequences of the thing that you've like thought about for so long, you know, you've stacked the scale. And then the cool thing is that like the belief will cycle. We're going to talk more about this in the next video when it comes to actually changing yourself and how to leverage like self-cycling feedback loops. And we'll talk about that, but like the belief will stack more and more and more and more and more. And there's no limit to like how heavy these things can get. Like it can get to the point where like the green bucket is so heavy that the black line just starts to grow and grow and stretch and stretch and stretch and get deeper and deeper and deeper. So there's no limit to it at all. And that also applies for the antithesis of like the red one. So like mental feedback loops are devastatingly powerful, and we'll talk about how to leverage them in the next video. So we cannot magically change what happened in the past, right? We cannot undo our experiences, and we cannot undo the constant imaginary experiences we've created about the thing in question. We can't go back in time and just be like, hey mum, can you just maybe change that word for me? And we can't go back to our like 9-year-old self and say, hey Charlie, stop thinking about blood tests, like stop doing it. Like you just can't. And likewise, we cannot magically change our behavior or financial situation by waving a wand. These problems are far too upstream. We need to address the root of the cause. So like I said before, you cannot just go and change your behavior. You can, but like if you want to form a habit, you have to form an identity. So like an example, if you want to form the habit of meditation, instead of just meditating every day, you should meditate every day, but then also work on convincing yourself you're the kind of person to consistently meditate. Right? This is how this shit works. All the time people are like, this shit happens every year. January rolls around and people get back in the gym and start eating healthily. And they start behaving in this way for a few weeks. But then their identity is like, actually, that's not us. That's not me. And all they had to do was just convince themselves and change these beliefs to believe themselves to be a healthy person. And then the behavior would manifest. So you fix your life with behavior, but you fix behavior with belief and identity. And this is where the magic can happen, in our imagination. We can create thoughts and imaginary experiences and start pouring proverbial water into the green bucket and emptying the red bucket. So, dude, you might be looking at this and thinking, oh, well, I'm fucked. You might be thinking, like, I have been cycling these beliefs and these thoughts and these experiences for, 20, 30 years, decades and decades of life have gone by where I've been, stacking these scales in the wrong way and I'm just screwed. Well, honestly, that's not the case. It's entirely possible to reset the scales and then start stacking them in a different way. Because like every time you have a positive experience, you kind of remove a negative experience. So let's say you've got 100 units of negative and then 0 units of positive. Then if you have 1 unit of positive, then you're going to have 99 of negative. You kind of have to remove one to replace the other. Because you can't have two self-beliefs in conjunction. Well, actually you can. I'll explain this in the non-binary reasoning, but for the sake of the simplicity of the video, you can't have you can't believe that you're bad at sales and good at sales at the same time. Now, it makes sense to think that you're good at sales, but also be aware that you're bad in the sense that you're only as bad as you think you're good, if that makes sense. So you can invert it, but for the most part, you can change. And if you can change your thoughts, you can change your experiences. And if you can change your experiences, you can change your beliefs. And if you change your beliefs, you can change your behavior. And if you can change your behavior, you can change your reality. So why isn't everyone rich, happy, and full of abundance? If this is the case, if you can change, why isn't everyone changing? I'm sure you've noticed by now that most people it's tragic. They grow up and then they form this identity that just kind of manifests as a result of their experiences with they've got no real sense of control or responsibility for themselves, and they just think oh, this is me, this is who I am, and that's it. Why does that happen? Why isn't this the case? Why can't people change? Well, this is what I'm going to introduce you to, the disease, right? Self-solidification. This is the big thing. Understanding self-solidification as the most tragic thing that happens in most people's lives is the secret. So there's this disease that it's like a psychological disease, and it's not this is the thing, it's the most widespread, most disastrous psychological phenomenon or disease that a human being can carry or be infected by, and yet there's no conventional diagnosis for it, there's no therapy for it, there's no practice for it. And today's video is going to bring this disease to your attention, and the next video is going to bring your attention to how to cure it. And this is the most important information a human can really have, because, well, everything stems from the identity, and if you can't change it, you can't change anything. The mass of men live lives of quiet desperation. What's called resignation is confirmed desperation. And that's by a quote called by a guy called Henry Thoreau. And what Henry means here is, like, the mass of men, like the most people in society, like they're quietly desperate. Unconsciously they're desperate. And they've resigned themselves to the fate of themselves. And that resignation is the confirmation of the desperate situation they're in. So when someone's like, this is me, this is who I am, and that's just it, that's just me, that's like they've kind of resigned life. They're like, oh yeah, I'm just, here you go life, I'm just handing in my resignation, like that's it, I am who I am and I can't change. Like that's just confirmed desperation. And the vast majority of people have resigned their ability to grow. This is because of a psychological phenomenon, and I'm dubbing it self-solidification. Insanity is the same thing, or doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It's Einstein that said that. But I would replace this, because Einstein forgot something. Where Einstein said we're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, but we don't do what we aren't. So I would replace this and say that insanity is being the same person over and over again and expecting us to do something to get a different result. And that's a quote from me. Now, I'm not actually going to, like, the reason I didn't put Charlie Morgan is because I've just taken Einstein's quote and just changed a couple of words. But, like, it's not really the definition of insanity, but, like, it's pretty insane to stay who you are and expect a different reality. So self-solidification, the tragedy of the 21st century. Self-solidification is the biggest psychological tragedy of our generation. And self-solidification is a psychological condition so common that it hides in plain sight from the everyday observer. And this is like everyone has this. Like 99.999% of human beings on the planet have self-solidification as a disease psychologically and don't know about it. Once you are aware of it, you'll become aware of it in others. And those blind to the true nature of the self are infected, and awareness is the cure. I define self-solidification as the following. So it's a devastating lapse in the judgment of the mass of society, whereby one believes that oneself is static, unable to change, and at the mercy of the reality that is the manifest of their unpliable identity. And in simpler terms, it's a total lack of awareness of the human capability for complete transcendence and change. People, we've become convinced that we just can't change. Sure, someone can pick up a habit and go into the gym and get fit and healthy. But it's very rare for someone to go from zero to multi-millionaire in a short period of time. It's very rare for someone to just take themselves and completely transcend themselves into someone. And this is why people just have this belief that they are who they are and they can't change. And it's tragic because it's just not true. And your identity is really its raw potential, right? Your identity is the literal clay of your own reality. And your biggest downfall up until now is that you forgot that it's malleable and had the ability to mold it. Now, I say forgot because children know they can become anything. People are like, the world's your oyster, or you can become anything you want, you can be anyone you want. That's what we tell our kids, right? It's exactly what we say to children. And I don't know why we don't say it to adults. Why the hell don't we say it to adults, right? You say to your kids, hey kid, the world's your oyster. Hey kid, you can, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, why does that only apply to children? Why can't I go to someone who's 30 or 40 years old and say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because as humans, we're always growing up. We're always getting older. Why do we have to solidify? We don't. It's a choice. It's a perspective. So most people forget they have this ability. If you go to someone who's 50 and say, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? 99% of people are going to say, oh, I've had my time. It's so tragic and it's so sad. And I'm so grateful that I learned this early on in my life. I'm so grateful that I had this down to a T by the time I was 20. Because it gave me this sense of holy shit, I really can be anything. Dude, if I wanted to, I could become a professional swimmer. If I wanted to, I could become a professional artist. If I wanted to, I could become a gardener. If I wanted to, I could become an astronaut. I could just pick something and just go and do it. And just start like reaffirming my identity. It would take a few years to start to have that thing catch on. A few months, it would just start to pick up. I'd start to take actions. Time would take some time, but like you could just, like anyone at any time, anywhere can do a complete 180 in their life. They can pull themselves from situations of complete misery and suffering to situations of raw abundance and happiness. And I firmly believe that anyone can do that. Every human has the ability to think, imagine, and remember. And we have the ability to craft and create experiences. The only time we don't do that is when we believe we cannot change. So this is the biggest belief. We're talking here about beliefs and stuff, but the biggest and most important scale that you can stack is whether or not you believe that you can change. That is the most important belief. It's the most important scale. It's the scale of all scales. Is whether or not you believe that you have it in you to change. That's the main thing. Everyone focuses on affirmations for, I'm good at sales, or I attract abundance. But nobody's focusing on, I can be anything I want at any time. And I am like water. I'm what Bruce Lee was trying to articulate. I can become anyone. I can become anything. I can choose who I am, and I can grow into anything that I want to grow into. If you can convince yourself you believe that, then everything in life gets very fucking easy. Because it's the same thing. If you're trying to convince yourself you're good at sales, but you're not convinced that you can actually change your beliefs, then you won't. So it's like the meta belief. It's like the most important thing. Let's map this out with an example. Let's say that you're not getting any sales calls because you're doing sales calls poorly because you believe sales is hard, and you're trying to convince yourself that sales is easy. But fundamentally, if you don't think that you can change yourself, then you're never ever going to keep acting on trying to change that belief of sales, which means you're not going to make money. So this is the first and most important thing to get right, is this self-certification thing. So I'm going to read this last bit again. Your identity is raw potential, the literal clay of your own reality. Your biggest downfall up until now is that you forgot it's malleable and had the ability to mold it. Obviously, children know they can. Why we separate that, I don't know. Instead, you let the psychological pandemic that is the victim mentality charm you, all while being sold on and accepting psychologically cancerous falsehoods disguised as adages such as be yourself or stick to your roots. After all, you are who you are, chants society. So stay in your lane, be true to and love yourself, and don't try to be someone that you're not. These are sickening words to someone who understands the true nature of their self and identity. A bit to unpack there. So, like, the victim mentality is seductive. It's seductive. It's a charming thing to believe that it's not your fault and to not take responsibility for the pain and the suffering and to point the finger. It's charming. It's seductive. It's this actually it's quite easy to buy into. It's the easy route to take. And the other easy route to take, and the one that really pisses me off the most is, just be yourself. Just stick to your roots. Just be stay as you are, or be who you are, or just love yourself. Like, dude, people just don't get it. Like, I don't understand the whole self-love thing, because listen to me. If you are in a situation in life right now and you really are suffering and you really aren't having a good time, then why on earth would you love the person that's put you there? I don't understand it. People have got this so backwards. And I'm not blaming people for like having it backwards, because nobody's been there to educate them. I had to dive into like 20th century psychology and psychoanalysis to actually get to the bottom of this stuff. So I'm not like blaming anyone. But my point is, if someone says to me, Charlie, hey, like, you want to get to 8 figures? Just be yourself and it'll be fine. No, that's just fucking bullshit. Because if my sense of self was the person that could achieve 8 figures, I would have already done it. So the worst advice you could possibly give to someone is just be yourself. Now, it's different. If you're going on a date and you want to find a partner that is best suited to who you would want to be with, then it makes sense to be yourself. Because you don't want to turn up to a date and be someone that you're not. Because then if they fall in love with you, then they haven't fallen in love with you. They fall in love with someone you pretended to be. But in this situation, in the context of business and personal growth, you absolutely cannot be yourself. It's a myth. Like, not getting any sales calls? Charlie, just be yourself on sales calls. It's fine. Well, I hate to break it to you, Charlie, but yourself isn't capable of selling, so don't be yourself. Be someone else. Right? This is the shit we need to know. And we see people undergo drastic change, but we attribute their change to talent, luck, or some sort of mystery, right? So when we see like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Michael Jordan, or, you know, maybe you look at me, I'm obviously nowhere near the league of those guys yet. But, you know, maybe you look at like their trajectory or my trajectory or Bo's trajectory or anyone's trajectory that's done anything that you know, perceive as good or pretty awesome. And you might look at it and think like, oh, they just got lucky, or Charlie's just like, he was just born that way. Or honestly, it must have just been luck, or Charlie just was in the right place at the right time, right? Because we can't see our own like potential and identity malleability, because we can't see that, we cannot see how others have manifested theirs without some sort of unexplainable force. So if up until this point you've believed that extremely successful people have just got lucky, then the reason you've believed that is because you cannot see yourself. Like, you can't see how you can change yourself, so you can't understand how somebody else could. So this is another sort of symptom of the disease of self-certification, is not being able to understand how insanely talented people have done what they've done. And I use the word talented because you develop talent, it's not born. Sure, you might be born with some proclivities, but like hell, you've got to work on those things. So we're all told to be yourself, or be true to yourself, or stick to your roots, or be proud of yourself. Like, dude, why would you be proud of the person that has caused all the suffering in your life? It is just stupid. Love yourself. Be who you were meant to be. Just be you. Yeah, you can be those things. If you want to sustain and maintain your current sense of reality, then yeah, go for it, man. And meanwhile, everyone's miserable with themselves, right? This is the funny thing, is everyone's trying to just be themselves, and everyone's trying to love themselves and be true to themselves. But like, everyone's just miserable with themselves. The stronger the disease becomes, the stronger our urge for change. And this manifests into a goal. So like, the more you just try to fall in love with who you are, the more your subconscious tries to make you miserable, because your subconscious wants to grow, and it's trying to like tell you can grow, but you're just ignoring it because of these stupid, like I said, psychologically cancerous adages. Like, I say psychologically cancerous because it's kind of like if you believe that you should be yourself, then it's kind of like you've in your body of your mind, you've got this like cancerous cell, and it just starts growing and duplicating until like the whole thing can't operate properly. So let me ask this, like, this is important. This is a good question. So what chances do you think you have of actually achieving your goal? So I want you to just piece of paper and a pen for me right now, right? Piece of paper and a pen. If you're not taking notes throughout this video, then, well, you should be. Piece of paper and a pen. I want you to write down percentage form what the chances you think you have of actually achieving your goal are. So grab a pen, jot it down, like 1 to 100, 0 to 100. Like, you might think you have 0% chance, you might think you have 110% chance. Just write down, like, on a scale of 0 to 100, how likely do you think you are to actually achieve your goal? You might think, like, yeah, I've got like a 50-50 chance of making it. I'm definitely going to do it 100%. Like, just write down what you think it is. Now, here's a cold, hard truth. You actually have no chance at all. Like, literally a 0 chance. But don't worry, I'm going to show you how to go from a 0 chance to a 100% chance. But you might be thinking, well, what the hell, Charlie? Like, hang on, where the hell does that come from? You've been hyping me up here. Like, why do I stand a 0% chance of being successful? Charlie, I'm not quite sure I understand. Like, this is supposed to be a mindset module. Why have you just told me I'm never going to make it? Well, this is the conflict of growth. Most people live lives paralyzed as who they are, unable to behave in ways incongruent with their identity. The subconscious desperately sets goals in an attempt to get the conscious mind to realize transcendence is possible, but what the unconscious screams for, the ego misunderstands as dreams or disregards as impossible. And goals are by their nature transcendental. And this means that in order to accomplish your goal, you must become the person that can. So this is why you have a 0% chance of achieving your goal. Who you are right now, your current sense of self, has a 0% chance of accomplishing your goal. Instead, like, you want to become the person that has a 100% chance. So what we're going to be doing in the next video is defining the person that gives you a guaranteed success chance of achieving the goal that you want. Because the person you are right now, it's not going to happen. That's why I said that. You do not have any chance of achieving your goal in your current state with who you are right now. With your current identity, it's not possible. Because if it was possible, you would have done it already. Now, this is important to understand. It's quite a bitter pill to swallow, but it's also quite a sweet one because it gives you this trajectory and this thing to improve. Most people aim for the goal itself, and this is wrong. You do not aim for the goal. Instead, aim to become the person that can easily achieve the goal. Right? We have to invert it. The issue is that there is a huge conflict between who you are now and who you need to be to achieve the reality you crave. Let me give you an example. So, this is me at 18 years old. Right? This is me. It's weird. I don't really recognize this person anymore. Like this, the guy that you can see on the screen here is very sort of like neurotic, very emotional, irrational, scared, afraid, like pretty lazy. Actually, at this point, I was kind of hard working, which was good. It stood in my favor. But like, I was bad at business. I didn't know how to negotiate. I didn't really know how to do sales calls. I was awful at appointment booking. Like I was just basically like shit, right? Like this was basically me. I was really awful at pretty much everything to do with business. I had no idea what to do. I was awful at accounting. This is the picture of me here is in my sister's art room, which was actually just basically a shed in my parents' back garden. And as you can see, I've got like 2 jumpers on and I had like 3 t-shirts on underneath this and some thick trousers and a heater next to me. And I was sitting out here in like the cold winter in the UK and the countryside in this art room making cold calls. And you can see I've got my script there on that little card in front of me. And I've got my headphones that I plug into my laptop to call on Skype. And I've got my laptop plugged in. And like that was my reality for a long time, was just pure pain. Right? And that's who I was. I was this shy, anxious, emotional, angry kid who did not have any idea about business at all. And this is me today at 24, and I don't even like recognize this person anymore. This is me now. And so like the person at the top here, like, well, he was, I don't even associate with him anymore. He was making like $0 a month. He was an apprentice making $3 an hour. And he had no company, no clients, nothing at all. And, you know, only like 5-6 years later, the person on the bottom left is making 200 grand a month, like multi-millionaire, has built another 7-figure agency, has, you know, hundreds of high-ticket coaching clients and has served over 350 retainer clients and has made a shitload of money for his age and has gone from basically nothing to like multi-millionaire, multi-7-figure, like having the time of his life business owner. Like what the fuck has happened here? How do you go from basically being the complete antithesis of like the person that you have become? And like this is really interesting because what you'll observe here is like I've got the same like face, similar haircut, similar jaw. I've still got those little like dimples by my cheeks. I'm still Charlie Morgan. I still have the same passport. I still have the same like driving license. Like those are fucking like arbitrary pieces of paper to describe our identity, right? I've still got the same birthday. I've still got the same family. Like I've still got the same things, but what's going on in my noggin, God, that couldn't be any different. In fact, I'd go as far to say that looking at these two people, the person at the bottom like doesn't have a single synapse or firing pattern or thought pattern that the person at the start did. Like no, like none of my habits are the same, none of my beliefs are the same, none of my thinking patterns are the same, like nothing. Like my identity is completely different. And so like this is evidence that you can do this as well. Because like, dude, if an 18-year-old kid making $4 an hour who basically can't do anything at all, can't sell, can't appointment book, can't deliver service, extremely emotional, extremely bad at pretty much everything, shy and anxious, like gaming addiction, going out and drinking all the time, and basically being irresponsible. If someone like that can become a millionaire, then I think pretty much anyone can. So like everybody looks at me and they see this end product. And by the way, I can tell you now, this is very much but the end product. Like, I'll be looking back at this in, a few years, and I'll be looking at the picture of me in Covent Garden Station in London and thinking, oh, that was cute. Like, that person was like, I don't have any similar like synapses or firing patterns to the person I am now when I'm doing like 8 figures. And then I'll look at me at 8 figures when I'm doing 9 figures and think, yeah, once again, different. And then when I get to 10 figures and billion, like, I'll look back and be like, yeah, nothing's the same. So like, this is pretty crazy. So this person wanted to be a multi 7-figure consultant, but it's impossible for him to achieve it. So like, this is my point, is I had to become the person at the bottom to achieve the result on the bottom right. And this person, for this person, achieving a multi 7-figure run rate is easy. So I've managed to grow myself and compound an identity that is so solid and so like it lends itself so well to a multi 7-figure business that like I can start a business and then take it from 0 to 200 grand a month in like a year. And that's what we did with Imperium. So like, the only reason that it's possible for me to do that is because, well, it's possible for me to do that, right? Me, my identity. And that's not like an ego or a narcissism thing. Like I could not have done that as this person. Instead, I had to become the person that can. And so this person now wants to achieve an 8-figure run rate, but it's impossible for him to achieve it. So like, my chances right now of me achieving 8 figures are nothing. 0, zilch. 0, nothing. I can't do it. 0% chance of getting to 8 figures. The reason behind that is because I have to grow into a totally different beast to become someone that can operate an 8-figure company. Like, I haven't figured that one out yet, right? I will. And then I've no doubt that I'll get to 8 figures, and then I'll figure out how to get to 9 figures, and then I'll figure out how to go even further. And then eventually I'll be a billionaire. If I continuously follow this pattern, which I firmly believe to be like the absolute key, then really there's nothing that will stop me. It's just giving the thing enough time, and with enough luck, I actually live to see it, right? So my point here is it's not just about you. Like, this is also me. Like, if I want to achieve an 8-figure run rate and make $1 million a month, I can't do that as my current self. My current identity does not lend well to that, because if it did, then I would have already done it, or I would have already gone to like 800 grand a month. And I always thought I was trying to bridge a gap in circumstance and situation. So I always looked at the goal. I always wanted, like, when this kid was like starting out, I always was like, I want to make like, multi 7 figures, because I was like, fuck 10 grand a month, fuck $1 million. I want to make like 2 million a year. And like, the interesting thing is, like, as of me recording this has actually happened. And like, I always perceived like this is the thing. I was like, I'm going from 0 to 200 grand a month. But if we reveal what's behind the situations, here's what we find. So this is what I thought I was doing. I thought I was going from 0 to 200. I thought I was bridging a financial situational gap. But really, what I was doing is bridging a gap between Charlie Morgan at the age of 18 and Charlie Morgan at the age of 24. And it's simple. Who I was did not stand a chance of achieving 200 grand a month. It would have been impossible. The only way I achieved a multi 7-figure situation was by becoming someone who could. And this is where everyone's got it wrong. We don't achieve goals. We achieve identities, characters, and self-images. It's through the achievement of a new self that our goal manifests as a byproduct. Your identity and sense of self is the product, and your situation is the byproduct. So, let me reiterate that. Your identity and who you are is the product. The reality that manifests as a result of that is the byproduct. You can manifest an entirely different and experience an entirely different reality if you just change yourself. So don't go and try and change the reality. Try to change yourself, and the reality will be changed for you. People produce their own reality. You are the cause. The goal is the effect. And this inverted nature of goal accomplishment is what everyone in modern day society has got wrong. And I can't tell you how hard it was for me to figure this out. I've been studying this on completely non-stop, like God knows how many books for, years and years, like half a decade almost of like daily research on this stuff, reading podcasts, books, biographies, autobiographies, videos, movies, anything I could get my hands on to do with like psychology. And, I've had to read through everything. I've even had to read about the dreams of 20th century psychoanalysts, psychoanalysts from Austria to figure this stuff out, like Jung and all that stuff. Like Carl Jung, and think about Carl Jung, like he's the guy that sort of created all this thinking, but like that was like ages ago, like hundreds of years ago, and since then we've just sort of lost it. It's not common knowledge, right? This inverted nature of goal accomplishment is not common knowledge, and it takes a hell of a lot of digging to unearth, let alone understand. And I hope that what I've articulated in today's video is clear and concise enough for you to raise your consciousness. Because dude, as soon as it's like clicked for me like that, I was like, oh my fucking God, like this is it. It's not about the goal, it's about the person achieving the goal. I don't want to try to achieve 100 grand a month. I just want to try and achieve an identity, like a 100 grand a month identity. And you can't be yourself and have your goal. You cannot have your cake and eat it too, proverbially, right? Because the truth is that if you were the person capable of achieving it, you'd have already achieved it. You must let go of who you are to become the person you need to become. Sticking to your roots means sticking to your current reality. Being true to yourself means, like, basically any new version required must be fake. So if someone's like, oh, Charlie, just be true to yourself, then, well, you're going to look at your current situation, and then if you think you should be true to yourself and you have to try to become someone you're not to, like, achieve the thing, then you're going to think that that's fake and not going to happen. Like, people have got this so backwards. And in case you can't tell, it pisses me off that this isn't taught in schools. It really angers me. If everyone knew this, everyone would be fine, right? But, you know, like, going back to the whole, like, sticking to your roots and stuff, like, you know, if someone wants to, like, go from, like, couple grand a month to 100 grand a month, and then they find out they have to like hire and train people, and like hiring and training people isn't in alignment with their sense of self, then they're not going to do it. Or like if they find out that they've got to watch some videos that are like 2 to 3 hours long, and they're like, oh no, I don't like long form content, I can't watch it, then they're not going to watch it. Or if they're like, I need to watch a long video, I don't do long videos, that's not me, this isn't in alignment with me. Or like oh, I don't do cold calls, like cold calling is not my thing. Like this is all how it works. Or, you know, oh, I don't know, I wouldn't respond to that cold message. I've got to be true to myself, so I'm not going to send the cold message. Like fucking stupid, right? Very stupid rationale there. In fact, it's not even rationale at all. But you see how this works. Like you can't get what you want if you're not willing to let go of who you are to become it. It just doesn't work. So you have to be willing, like Eminem with the whole lose yourself, like I think he was talking more about losing yourself in the music, but if there is like a denotion of, you know, losing yourself to become someone better, then that's amazing. But you have to be willing to lose yourself, to quote Eminem. And this comes back to the cold hard truth of there being a 0% chance of you achieving what you want to achieve. But I will tell you who can, and that is your evolved self. And that's the topic we'll be taking on in the next video, where we'll be taking action on this. So that's the end of this video. So this video was purely just to give you an understanding and an introduction to this topic of self-transcendence and coming to terms with who you are, right? And what we're going to be doing in the next video is exploring yourself a bit further and understanding the nature of yourself in some more detail and depth. We're going to really be looking at these beliefs and like who you are and who you need to become, and we're going to basically put an action plan together to help you start to become the person. Because I've actually got a real tangible scientific process that I use to go from Charlie Morgan 1 to Charlie Morgan 2, although there's like 3, 4, and 5 in between these points. But to go from this person to this person, I've actually created a process. And I've learned a process from mentors, and I've adapted a process for myself, and it's really the only thing that's resulted in me achieving my success. It's not like my Loom strategy, it's not my sales calls, it's not anything. It's just knowing how to completely pull yourself out of the gutter and become anything that you want. And so, in summary, you are responsible for all of your suffering. You're the sum of all of the beliefs that you've ever stacked about anything, and that's your identity and that's who you are. You've probably self-solidified, and you probably believe that you can't change, or at least you believed you couldn't change up until this point. You probably have this conflict, right? Where like you're not able to grow because, well, like it's anything, like the actions and the person required are out of alignment with who you currently are, and your ego won't let you act in accordance with who you currently are, so you're not doing anything. And then the next video is where we're going to be discussing Protean self-evolution, which is the cure. So, you know, like next video, we'll actually be taking some serious action on this stuff. But that's everything for today's training video. I truly hope that I've done a good enough job of opening your eyes. Because this thing here, like this stuff, if you really absorb it and you truly take it in and you take this to heart and you actually understand the nature and the thesis of what, like the core central thesis of, I know I've sort of gone around the topic and repeated myself over and over, but I want to drum this in as much as possible. That's why I'm so repetitive in my nature here. If you can truly understand the core central thesis of what I've just laid out, you will be able to become anyone you want to become. You will be able to achieve anything you want to achieve, and no reality will be off limits. As long as nature and physics allows it, so it will become, if you become. Thanks for watching.